Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's February 14th. It is Valentine's Day. If you haven't thought about your significant other, it might be a good time to do so. It's getting pretty late, so anyway, I thought I'd remind you of that. But anyway, let's start out by taking a quick look at our daily chart. You can see that here. We finally broke out of this little trading range. It looks like we tried to make a measured move down. We didn't quite get one. Maybe this is not quite. It looks like we did make an exact measure move. I didn't quite have this in the right place. I wasn't quite on the closes there. If you get on the closes, you can see we actually, this one might be just a tad lower there. But anyway, you can see we made a perfect measured move down and bounced. And we'll see if we go any higher from there. At this point, it looks like we may attempt a retest of these lows, maybe even another leg down. Although we are getting back in oversold territory here as well, this brown line. So I wouldn't be surprised if now we've got a leg up, two legs in the middle, and if we go higher, maybe we get that measured leg up now. We'll just have to see. We could just stay inside this range. Maybe this range is really to here. And that's the way we'll draw it now because we did reach that measured move. And we'll just go from there. So that's what I'm seeing on the daily. Nothing that says we're about to rally strongly out of here at this point. We could still see more down. We could see prices attempt this low here. I mean, we're on an inside day right now. Of course, this is the overnight session that we're trading in now. So it really doesn't tell us much until we get till tomorrow sometime. We won't really know. So, but anyway, there's a quick look at it, what I think and where we stand and what I'm seeing. So let's flip over to the 2000 tick chart. We'll go through the trades and go from. Okay, here's a look at our 2000 tick chart, and as you can see, it's just a big range day. Everything traded within the overnight highs and lows. I originally had this down here. I tightened it a little bit once we bounced a few more times here. It's not much different from where I had it. Still, you can see it looks like probably where I had it this morning was correct because the midline looked a little more obvious, but in the afternoon that midline looks a little more obvious on this one. So it doesn't really matter. It's a fairly large range. I mean, from top to bottom. I mean, that's 67.5 points. That's a long way. I mean, that's a big range. So, I mean, you had a huge move up, a choppy move back, a choppy move up, another huge move down, and then we've just been chopping up since that point with a lot of sideways stuff in there too. So, really a market that just doesn't really know what it wants to do almost. So, anyway, we'll zoom out or back out, zoom in here, and get a little closer look, and we'll go through the trades. Early on, we had this real tight range and a drop down, and then we found support, and we suddenly rallied strongly, and that's all before 7 o'clock. 7 o'clock came right in here as we're making this second leg attempt to go higher here, and you can see we just ran into strong resistance there. And I like this one just because it's you made the high, you test it once, you test it twice. There's a triple test there, clearly showing resistance. And we're still a little ways away from the MA. So as long as you have room back there, you may be interested in that. I marked it green because it is congested. And you got to be careful with that. But you can see we clearly failed out the high side a couple of times before it turned down. And then we just can kind of continue to chop. There is a first entry long, second entry long here, but you got to go short right into that support across there. And I'm not crazy about that. It worked, but I don't think it's worth taking. Of course, we bounced off the lows here. Usually you're better off to wait on the higher low, which comes here, but we've already been through the EMA and come back. That's a possibility. You might try to scalp that back to the EMA, and maybe you get lucky, and this is support here. But I didn't mark it. Of course, now you got your leg that runs up. You get a break, move to a new high, and then you get this little trap. You tried to go higher and failed and turned down. I like going short right there. I wouldn't wait till here and go short. You don't have room to get out in case it bounces at the EMA. It does push through, pull back, and give you a failure right there. And I like going short on that one. And boom, off it goes. That's probably the trade of the morning so far. Then, of course, you bounce down here at the lows again. You try to go short once, twice, it fails. There's a second entry long here, but the signal bar is not good enough. But if you look at it as a failure, you could take that one. It looks a little congested. You don't really see the doji looking bar in here, but there's still some stems and stuff. So for that reason, I marked it green. But we've been kind of going from the highs to the lows, so we just came off the lows again. So wouldn't be out of the norm at all to see another leg up here. It doesn't go very far though and comes back before it makes that next leg up, but it's still enough to scalp out. I marked that one green, but it's kind of tempting for different reasons. The one, particularly because it's a second entry and a failed second entry altogether. So just something to think about. And of course, we do make that second leg up, and from here you got a new low. So you get a first entry, second entry, and you get that second entry right up here at the former resistance, and you're a long way away from the EMA. Very bearish bar, and you could also look at this as a little congestion, so a failed breakout of that as well. It's almost a no-brainer to at least run back to the EMA. Generally, a lot of times you want to wait on a lower high, but with this being a second entry, multiple tests across there, a very bearish bar, all of that, I just think you almost have to take this trade. I didn't color that one, so it's a little harder to see. Then, of course, we bounce and go the other way, and I didn't color this one either. Go ahead and color it just so you can see it there. Make it a little easier. But we run, if you catch this one, that's a really great trade. It runs all the way down. You don't get any other opportunities to enter it, and then it just turns and bounces and goes straight back up. There is a failure here, and this one's a little bit tempting, but it doesn't quite get back to the, make this a little bigger. It doesn't quite get back to the EMA, and it looks really congested. So I didn't mark it, but it runs straight back up to the top where it gets resistance. And again, it's tempting to want to go short right there. And you could probably argue for that one, but generally that's a fairly strong move there. And so I would wait on a lower high, which comes here, and you still get a nice move. And if you catch this, you probably ride this all the way down. There was a reversal here, but it was all in one bar, kind of an engulfing bar. And I don't see any reason to try to go short on that engulfing bar way down here. And so I think you just have to skip that. It's just not a very good. But if you caught either one of these, you can ride this all the way down. And of course, it actually breaks out of the support this time, pushes down. But you'd expect that to fail. Unfortunately, you do get a reversal here, but it's on the wrong side of the EMA. And look at it go. It's a shame that it didn't set up a little better than that. It actually was a failure when it broke above this bar, but because this is a matching low, you might consider going long above that bar, but as you see, it just kind of gapped over and kept going, so I don't think you would have got in it anyway, so it doesn't really matter. And of course, we run up here and we turn down here. I draw my trend line off of that just in case. No setup here really, and the bottom just falls out of it again. We run down, and of course, we do push through that support, and it fails, but you want to wait on a higher low, which comes here. And then you don't really have enough room back to the EMA. Maybe there's enough room in there. I don't know. I didn't mark it. I mean, I didn't measure it. Let's just look, because if there is, you might take that trade. I would still mark it. Well, there's 2 points there. So, I mean, you could argue for that to be green. It's a higher low. And of course, again, you get the failure here. And it does close above the EMA, but look at those 3 bars. And you can clearly see this looks like a dark channel here, and we didn't quite get to the lows, so that scares me. And then you also have the yellow one coming up, so you would expect this to go higher and maybe overshoot the same amount here on this side. So that means we're probably going higher. And with this green one working up, I just skipped that trade. Um, and I drew this arrow at this because somebody took this trade and they couldn't figure out why it failed. They said, hey, I took this second entry short, which it is a second entry short. But look at that support, and you get the little failed break lower, and then it's back inside. And I just don't think you want to enter there. And I wouldn't take the reversal there because of the congestion. So there's just really no trade there. Um, that's the way I see that. If anything, I'm kind of looking for a long here. Maybe. But I don't like the long because of the congestion. Actually, I think this trader somebody else might have even went long there and got trapped. There was one somewhere somebody asked me about, but I'm pretty sure there was a trader that went short, and I think this is where he went short. And I can see why he liked it. It's a second entry short, and you got this big move down, but you got it. He actually had no trend lines or anything on his chart, and he didn't account for this support. And if you look at that, you got to assume that could be a failure. So I'd be leaning towards looking for a long here, and I just didn't like this one. It looked like it was going to be an engulfing bar, and then it couldn't even break higher, and you got a midline right here on the main channel. So a lot of reasons to be leery about going long or short right there. So I think you just sit tight. So hopefully if that trader's watching, that's a little more explanation and kind of shows you what you should have been looking for there. But of course you get your break and a move to a new high, and then it confirms that trend line right there. That's just a first entry, but because of the break and the new high and the big bearish bar so far away from the EMA and the fact that it confirmed that, I like that trade. I was hoping you get a lower high. It actually, I think it did break higher and turn down here, and so maybe you trade that on an engulfing bar, but that looks too much like a lot of indecision, so I just would skip that one personally. There is a failure right here, but it's on the wrong side of the EMA. It works, but you don't know that. But if you're just patient, notice what happens in a few. Instead of forcing one of these trades, just wait a few minutes and you get a first entry and then a second entry. Look how bearish that bar is. That's just as easy as it gets right there. Boom. And it's right off that trend line that just got confirmed multiple times. So if you're just patient and wait on the setups, they'll come. Then it drops on down. You get a first entry, second entry. But look at that congestion again. This looks too much like what happened to this trader over here. You just can't take that trade right there. There's a lot of support right there. And notice it did bounce. It ended up pushing on down, but you just don't know that it will, and it's not worth risking. And of course, you get a higher low here, but there's too much resistance right there. I don't like going long. You might have looked at this as a reversal here, but it's right at this trend line. And there is a second entry short right here. I didn't mark this trade. It broke higher and then turned down. It looked like it was going to be an engulfing bar. And you might have traded it if it broke on through as engulfing if you want to be a little more aggressive. But when it closes inside that trend line with a 2-bar matching lows right there, I'm not going to risk going short right there because it's too big a chance it breaks lower and then goes up and then turns down. And then it just kind of chops higher. And again, because it's still chopping higher here, I'd wait on the lower high, which comes here. And you get a failed second entry long, and that's a fairly bearish bar, but there's just not much room back to the EMA there. But this is one of those where you could argue for it to be green because we've got to break the first break of this dark green channel, so we're probably going to try to make a new low here. Even if it is going to be a range day, we're probably going to try to make a new low, and you pretty much got a double top here, and really that's kind of a little bit lower. Very bearish, a little ways back to the EMA. It is a second entry if you count down here. We're not really looking for second entries here, but you still want to pay attention to them. So maybe you take that trade. Comes down here and just chops around. Too choppy. That's not rejection. There is a higher low here, but it's right into the midline, right into resistance right there. And it runs on up and turns down, gives you a big bearish bar. That's where I like going short. if you're going to take this trade. Chop lower again, and it bounces again. There's no setup here to go long. It just takes off, and it ends up getting back inside the pink channel. But you want to also draw this. It's like a little spiking channel here. It's not a real strong channel, but this is a channel working up here all the same. And early on, I had it down here, and it fits okay there, but I really think in the end it was up here, and you had a midline working across in there. But no matter how you saw it, it doesn't matter. Actually, I think that I liked it best right there with this being the overshoot. And you can see the midline works really well there. That's the best looking spot of all to me. So I'm thinking that's probably how it was. But clearly you got a trend line here, regardless of where it's at up here. And when we work back, you get a first entry and then a second entry. You could count that as a high or low off the trend line. Technically, this is a double top, so you could count it as a second entry. But even if you counted this as a second entry, it's still a high or low. And you're expecting, I mean, everything's telling you prices are probably going to try to go higher here. Even if this is going to be a range, even if we're going to stay inside the midline and the pink lower here, you still got plenty of room to get out there before you reach that. So I like that trade. There is a reversal here, but you can't go long right into that resistance. It breaks higher, fails, comes back, and you get another bounce right off of the trend line. I'd wait on the high or low, which comes here, and then it's congested, so it could pull back, but then quickly you get a reversal here, and I like this. It breaks lower and turns. I like going long. One tick above that bar. I wouldn't wait till here to go long. No way, because you see what happens to you. But if you wanted to trade that on an engulfing bar, you could. I probably should change that to green, but I was going to explain it anyway. So I mean, that bar's 30 points. Don't go long way up here. You have to do it on the engulfing portion. And then that makes it a little more suspect. Engulfing bars are not as reliable. So anyway, and then we just continue to chop up this. I don't see anything else I see there. We do come up here and get this. Again, it looks like we had an overshoot. So you don't want to take this high or low. Notice we come back and you get a first. You got a new low and you take a first entry. You don't want to be going short there, period. And then you get a second entry or third entry short that fails. So that's a failed second entry short if you count your low right here, first entry, second entry. So I like that, because when this turns up, if it goes past here, it's going to trap people. It's a little close to these highs up here. And technically that's not a new low, because the low's way back here, I think. Yeah. And so really it's a first entry, second entry, third entry, fourth entry, but that still looks like a two legs up after a bounce off the midline or EMA. So I guarantee that's going to trap people, and you can see how that rocketed on up before it sold off again. And there's another reversal pattern that sets up here, but you can't go short right into all that support there. It's too risky, and you see what happens. It breaks lower, fails, and turns back up. Then it comes down, you get a first entry, second entry, but again, too congested. I think it's still too early to look for shorts. And of course it does break and start working lower. You actually get a second entry here, but the signal bar is no good on mine. Notice the new low, first entry, second entry. That's too bullish. But you do get the reversal pattern here, and you also get a second entry short, and it is right off that key entry point. Now there is some support here, but with that trend line holding like that, and that being a triple test that fails, and don't take a triple test into a downtrend line holding like that. So the people that aren't paying attention to what's going on don't catch that, and they go long there and it fails. I like going short there, and look at that. I'm going to take that most times. Drops on down. you just get a first entry here, drops on down. You do get a first entry, second entry here, right at the key entry point again. Fairly small bar, bearish. Take that trade. And then you get a failure right here, but there's just too much support across there. I didn't draw my line, but hopefully you can see that support across there. You can't go short into that. Even though we know prices are probably going out here to test the lows, you don't know exactly where that's at because the lows were way on down here at the time. So it does bounce. It does give you a higher low here. I didn't mark this. There's probably enough room to get out there, but this has been a strong downtrend, and that's the first break. So there's a good chance we could push lower still. We come back with a higher low here, and you could say, hey, this is a reversal maybe, but it's below the EMA. It doesn't set up right. And then we turn down here, come back, and we bounce here. So it's clear this is a little range now, and you got a big bullish bar with plenty of room to get out here. So I'd probably take that trade. You could look at that as a triple test. You could call it a second entry. It really just looks like one leg down to me. But there is a little jog in there too. Notice it comes down, tries to go higher, comes down. There's reasons to like that long. And if you take it, you get rewarded well for it. Of course, first break lower, you get the break of the trend line, and it's kind of trading down. Too congested, too congested. It does bounce there. There's a fairly nice opportunity at a short there, but I wouldn't take it because we may still try to make another leg up here, which we do, but it doesn't, we chop around in here and it's not an equal leg up either. So, but I do like this trade. Notice we come down, we make that new low, we try to go lower once, twice, and this actually breaks lower and turns up. I like going long there. As long as you got room to here, you're probably going to get a scalp. And at that point, I really thought we'd get a measured leg, which we do, but it doesn't come till over here. You would think it would come right there, but it doesn't. It comes over here. So, and you actually have like a little jog in there, and then there's two-leg jog in that. So, in fact, you might consider all this one move. This is getting a little more convoluted, and you can see there, it's basically a perfect measured move. So we bounce down here again, no setup that I like. We run right back up to the top. But this is just kind of in no man's land, so no reason to go short there. I would want something, a lower high or something, and you might say, hey, there's a reversal here because there's a first entry, second entry, but that's just too congested. In the end, that's just a little congestion area. I'll make it a little different color just so it's easier to see. And we do end up getting two legs down on it, and then it bounces. Now you pretty much got a triple test down here. You've also got a second entry long. We're way away from the EMA, so you may risk that one. I'd wait on the higher low, which is here. Not the greatest higher low because we've already pushed through and pulled back. That's a little far to really like that as a higher low, but you still may take it. I marked it green. You get another second entry here, but very neutral bar. Don't take that. And of course, we run up. You break out up here of the resistance, and you make a lower high right here. So I like that just to ride it back to the EMA. You're probably going to get at least two legs back, and we may rock it all the way to the other side. And sometimes these failures will they'll break out, fail on one side, and then continue on. They'll be successful on the other side, but turned out this just went back to the EMA, bounced, and took us into 230. So that's what I saw today. Quite a few trades there, but a lot of green ones. So not the easiest trading day. I mean, there's some great easy trades in here, but there's a lot of choppiness and bouncing around, and be careful in that stuff because you can get you can get whipsawed, whiplashed, or whatever very quickly in a market like this. So anyway, happy Monday. We'll be back again tomorrow, but I'm going to wrap it up for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.